Hey guys, welcome back to Revolution XRC and welcome to the next part of this Boom Racing BRX01 adjustable wheelbase link version kit build series. In this part of the series, we're going to be adding the Boom Racing tubular front bumper, the Boom Racing tubular rear bumper, and this Kudu skid plate. So here are the parts, and I'll put a link to these parts in the description below. Let's go ahead and start off with the front bumper. Now keep in mind that when you add this bumper, you're going to have to remove the ABS plastic bumper on the body. Here is the part number for the front bumper. Alright. So it comes with these two grub screws and forgot what these are called, but these two screws that this bumper will latch onto. Now you want to carefully thread these into the bumper because it's metal and sometimes it's really hard to get it to perfectly fit. Try not to cross anything. Alright, I'm just going to take my time and carefully thread these and we'll be right back. Alright, when you have these threaded in, it should look like this. You want to do it really slowly because you don't want to cross thread. The bumper is made out of metal, so if you screw up and cross thread it, you're kind of screwed. You're going to have to get a new bumper. It's not like plastic where it's forgiving. So just make sure you take your time and get those screws in correctly. Alright. Now let's attach the bumper on here. And we're just going to use the grub screws to secure it. And that's it. That is the installation of the front tube bumper. We'll go ahead and move on to the rear bumper. Here are the parts for the rear bumper. It's pretty much going to be the same type of installation as the front bumper. Here is the part number for the rear bumper. And I'll put a link to this in the description below. So once again, you have two grub screws and these two bolts, and you'll have to screw in these two bolts to the rear cross brace. So right here. So I'm going to do this off camera and carefully thread it in, and we'll be right back. Alright, the rear holes were more forgiving, so it was a lot easier to thread these in, but you do need to use thread lock just to make sure that these don't slip out. But it should look like that when you're done. Same thing with the front bumper. We're going to be attaching this rear bumper on like that. And then we're going to be adding the grub screws to secure it in place. So let's just go ahead and do that. And there we go. The set screws are in place. And that rear bumper is mounted up. Now we just need to put the metal plate decal on. So So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, with the decal on, it should now look like that. We're now ready to move on to the front skid. These are the parts that come with it. This is the part number for this front skid, and I'll put a link to this in the description below as well. Alright, unfortunately to install this front skid, you do have to remove this front tubular bumper first, and also the screws that secure it, which I don't like to do because it's threading into metal, but we're going to have to do it in order to put this on. Alright, first you'll need these following parts. You'll need these two braces, these two D-ring retainers. You'll need two M2.5 by 6 countersunk screws and two M2.5 by 8 button head screws. First, you'll just need to line up the braces. There's only really one way it goes, so just line them up. Alright, and when you're done, it should look like this. Next, we'll be adding the D-rings. Next, we'll be adding the D-rings. Now for the D-rings, there is a threaded side and a non-threaded side. So the non-threaded side faces towards the outside and the threaded side is on the inside. There you go. The D-rings are now added, and we're ready to get prepared to mount this onto the chassis. Now, to mount this onto the chassis, we do have to reposition the servo mount. Now this thing gets installed right here. You'll see on the left side that there's not enough room for this to bolt in high enough. So you do have to move this servo mount over, I think it was like one screw hole to be able to install it. It goes like this actually. And it would install like that. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the servo and move the servo mount over, show you that, and then start the installation of the skid plate. Alright, we're back. So I shifted this servo mount over a little bit just so that there's a little bit of a gap there. You need that gap to be able to fit the braces for the skid plate. They go in between there. But anyway, I have it shifted over. I also changed this link by lengthening it using longer rod ends and making the length 80 millimeters from eye to eye. That way I can get the full steering angle without this ever straightening out with the link. Before, the link and the servo horn were straightening it out, so it would get locked. But with the longer link length, I can get full steering angle. Alright, so let's go ahead and finish putting the skid plate onto the chassis. So now that we've got the servo mount moved over, we can insert this here and start bolting it up. Alright, so I don't want to cross thread these bolts, so I'm just going to carefully do it and we'll be right back. Alright, I've carefully threaded in the bolts, and now we need to secure the rest of it with a screw right up here. And it comes with these screws in the bag, but it also came with these extended ones, so I need to figure out which one to use, but I'll be right back. Alright, I'm going to use the two M3x12s. I think it'll work, they're long enough. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, with those two screws on the side secure, we have now completely installed the Kudu skid plate. Now we're ready to just put the bumper back on. And there we go. We have the tubular bumper and the Kudu skid plate installed. Now before we put the body back onto the chassis, we will actually have to go ahead and remove the stock front plastic bumper as well as the stock rear tailgate piece. So let's go ahead and do that. For the rear bumper, we need to remove the stock plastic bumper piece. So let's go ahead and do that. There we've got the front bumper removed. Let's go ahead and remove the part we need on the rear. On the rear bed, you want to remove this piece right here, and that's just these 3 screws. Now I can proceed with putting the body back onto the chassis, which I will start doing right now. So far everything's looking clear. Let's go ahead and do your bed. Actually, no, you have to put the tab up. Right, cab's secure. Let's go ahead and put them in bed. Alright, with that last screw on, we finally have everything installed. We get you a good look at this Kudu skid plate and tubular front bumper. And here is the rear bumper. Yeah, let me just move the camera to give you a better look. Alright, here's a better look at how it looks. Really cool looking, as you can see. Here's a look at the rear bumper. Really nice.